G'day guys, Steve with Broken Sprocket. In this video, I'm going to be installing a winch to the HJ47 Land Cruiser. I'm also going to modify the bull bar to close this gap up a little bit. As you can see, this gap is quite large here, so I want it to come back a little bit, which will help with approach angles and also just the overall looks of the vehicle. I have a universal winch mounting plate, which will need to be modified because obviously that's only a universal thing and you need to modify it to suit your needs. And I might also just give it a little bit of a clean up because we went four-wheel driving and it's too dirty to deal with at the moment. You can see that footage on Instagram. If you go to Broken Sprocket's Instagram, you'll see some of the footage of us four-wheel driving these vehicles. So let's get started. Okay, firstly, need to remove the spotlights. I will need to cut this section here out of this mesh so that I can have the winch cable, rope and stuff come through here. I'll need to remove these tow hooks. The winch mounting plate will probably be re-anchored using these tow hooks and possibly this hole here, another bolt. And also remove the bull bar and do the modification to the bull bar so the bull bar will come back and meet right up against this tow hook here. You can see this is a standard bumper bar for the Cruiser. And what's happening at the moment is my one is a square box on the bull bar. So I need to cut that section so that that it slides over and the rails go in like this. Because at the moment the rails are sitting like that and I need them to go in like this. With the winch sitting in place, you can see there's very little room here. So the bull bar can't go back a massive amount. I may not be able to get exactly what I want here, but these holes here that are already in the chassis, I may not be able to use them. I may have to put another hole in or just keep the two main big bolts that are holding those tow hooks in. This needs to be cut, it looks like, pretty much on the outside of these bolt holes to remove these pieces on both sides, and then that way I can lever this forward or backwards to which way I like with ease without it hitting on these. And then we'll just have to go from there and see what it looks like. So along this line here is where I want the cut to be. So I've just put some masking tape there, a little bit of spray paint, different colour. Now remove the tape. And I've got a perfect line to cut now. So I know exactly where I want that cut to be and I can run my angle grinder with a cutting wheel on it straight along that edge there. Okay, now I've got the edges cut off this so that it's the width of my chassis rails. I can now slide this up and down to wherever I require it because it no longer impedes with this section here. So now I can organise my bull bar, slide this to the place where I need it to be, and I still need to cut this off so that I can mount this to the front of the bull bar. And I can see how far back the bull bar will go until it actually does hit on the winch, and that's where I go from there. Okay, we've hit the point of no return on the bull bar. I've now cut the back sections out here so that the bull bar will recess more, which is good. It's sitting back much further than it used to be. I'd say it used to sit about here and now it's sitting back a little bit more, which does look a bit better. Problem is, I'm thinking I want it raised so that it mounts straight in like this. I'll put some bracing in the bottom here and obviously box this in so it doesn't rust and stuff and strengthen it up. But it makes the bull bar sit a little bit higher than it was. As you can see, the winch plate is sitting on the chassis. I do want this winch plate to go a bit more forward. Once I cut this off, it will slide under the bull bar and I will be able to bolt it on and have the bull bar go over the top of the bolt. Okay, I've got the bull bar now sitting where I want it to sit. I'll have to run a plate along here so that it's sitting a little bit higher so that that will marry up with this piece. The winch plate can move forward a bit, but I will have to remove this section here from the length from this bar to the same on the other bar there, because you can see that the winch cable would bind on that, so I'll remove this one, which will give it a better angle. I'm also going to gusset this down a bit so that it's lower, and this piece here will be set back and in line there, and it'll probably cut about there, so that will recess nicely into that section, and that should put that winch cable not binding on anything, so that should be good. Okay, now I've boxed this section in here. That's done. You can see the holes for the bottom part of the bumper bar, and the top ones will be going through this piece here. So now the bumper bar is recessed. That's where an old bolt was, an old bolt hole. So the bumper bar is actually sitting up higher, about 15 millimeters higher than it was before. So it will be going through this point here and these points here, and it's also recessed in about 50 millimeters. So it'll be back and up a little bit taller than it used to be. So I've got one side done, and I just need to do the same with this side. So that's your 15 millimeters extra height, and then box in these sections. Okay, everything's starting to go to plan now. I've got this fairing in place, and I just notched this piece out, which was originally on the winching mount, and notched it into the bull bar. And on the other side of the bull bar, I've just tapered the bull bar down so that this winch rope will not be interfered with by the bull bar in any way. So when it's on full tension, the only thing touching this winch rope will be this aluminium fairing. On the sides here, I just had to notch these out a little bit more. This one might need to go just a little bit more in because this side's a little bit longer than the other side the winch was hitting. On this side it doesn't come out as much, so it didn't need as much there. The only other thing to do now is to put these hooks in, and from my measurements they should fit in, but that's going off my measurements, so hopefully they will just bolt straight in there once I drill the holes for those. And these hooks will still be pretty good to use for an anchor point, or if you're double winching or something like that, you'll be able to hook onto these, and that should be quite good. Okay, after a heap of welding and grinding, the bull bar is finally starting to look the way that I want it to look. All that's really left to do is just do the finishing touches and make it look nice. And the bull bar is ready for paint and to be installed onto the vehicle for the final time. Okay, the metal work is now finished. Just put a little bit of primer over the areas that had the work done to it. So it's looking pretty good. I'm not thinking of painting the whole bull bar. I think I'll just blow in the sections that I've worked on. The bull bar, I don't want it to look too shiny or too new because it won't match the rest of my car. Here we are with the finished product. The bull bar sitting back nice compared to where it was. It's all boxed in. There's 6 mounting point bolts for the winch cradle. The winch is sitting in nicely. It's all been cut. None of this intrudes on the winch cable in any way because it's all been tapered down so that it doesn't touch anything. I also added another mounting bracket for the bull bar so that the bull bar also sits on top of the winch cradle, giving it extra strength. Because with the way it was mounted before, everything was reliant on this bracket here, which is only held on by 2 of the factory rivets, which was quite a lot of weight for that. So now with the extra bolt and bracket going into the top of the winch cradle, that takes a lot of stress off of this plate. I'm not running the tow hook on this side here because I decided to mount the control box at the front here where it's out of the way. So only the one tow hook on the other side, which is pretty much all it really needs. Now it's time to go and get it stuck somewhere and test out this winch.